You know, my concept of successful living is escaping the matrix, as we talked about, you know. It, you know, it has very little to do with what people think success is. I actually feel successful right now, even though, you know, I don't have an album out or a video or a song on the radio.
All three members dropped solo albums. Lauryn Hill's album has the most success. But then she stops dropping albums. I mean, she had like the MTV Unplugged album, but she doesn't really drop a real follow-up to this diamond-selling album. You know, you guys are still close. Did she tell you why she stopped making albums?
She just felt uninspired.
You know, my concept of successful living is escaping the matrix, as we talked about. You know, it has very little to do with what people think success is. I actually feel successful right now, even though, you know, I don't have an album out or video or a song on the radio. Child, so much has been said about the real reason Lauryn Hill kind of left the industry, from people saying that she sabotaged her career to PRA saying that she just became uninspired. You know, all three members' duo solo albums. Lauryn Hill's album has the most success, but then she stops dropping albums. I mean, she had like the MTV Unplugged album, but she doesn't really drop a real follow-up to this diamond-selling album. You know, you guys are still close. That did she tell you why she stopped making albums? She just felt uninspired. What if I told you that Lauryn didn't just get uninspired, that there were forces working very hard to make sure she was out of the game because she refused to lick their behind? We're going to talk about that, but first let's do a bit of background on Miss Lauryn Hill. Of course, we already know that Lauryn is a phenomenal singer, but just like with several other artists, she had it rough in the beginning. So when Lauryn was 13, she decided to take her talents to the Apollo stage in New York City to sing the Jackson 5's Who's Loving You. I'm tell you, I promise this is going to be an exciting amateur night. So let's bring out our next contestant. Gives a nice Apollo. Welcome to Lauryn Hill. Unfortunately, her nerves got the best of her and she struggled to get her act together. She was eventually booed off the applause stage, but let's just say that she did not give up, because while in high school Lauryn joined a hip-hop music group, the Fuji, founded by her Haitian friend PRZ. The initial members were PRZ and a girl named Marcy, who brought Lauryn into the group. Then PR's cousin, then White CL, joined the group around a year later. Together they somehow managed to balance their studies while recording demos and landing gigs, and 3 different labels even offered them record deals by the end of the school year. Lauryn also landed acting gigs like Sister Act 2 alongside Whoopi Goldberg and pretty much did well for herself in the industry. In fact, the Fuji took home 2 Grammys, including Best R&B Performance and Best Rap Album, but surprisingly they disbanded during the height of their success. Well, according to Lauryn's former manager, it had to do with creative differences with Lauryn herself, saying, "I intended to be in the group forever until I found myself in circumstances where I felt the inner desire to express myself freely and openly without any constraint." Well, other than the success of the band, Lauryn's first album Miseducation was also super successful and sold more than 10 million copies and won 5 Grammys. Like, it was literally a crash course in superstardom for Lauryn, but her downfall was also just as fast as her rise to superstardom. So what exactly happened, and how did Lauryn go from this shooting star to a wrecking ball? Well, I'm going to tell you one thing: Lauryn was not about to let Hollywood execs control her career, her direction, her creativity, or her future, and she was pretty clear on this throughout her career. For instance, she told Essence in 2009, "I don't think I ever handled celebrity for a period of time. I had to step away entirely. There were many temptations, enticements, entrapments, whether it was the dependence on image or just some false sense of security. I had to step away when I realized that for the sake of the machine I was being way too compromised." Also, during an interview with Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Albums podcast in January 2021, Lauryn said that despite Miseducation's massive critical and commercial success, her label stifled any hopes for a proper follow-up. She said, "The wild thing is, no one from my label has ever called me and asked, 'How can we help you make another album?' Ever did I say ever. With the Miseducation there was no precedent. I was for the most part free to explore, experiment and express. After the Miseducation there were scores of tentacled obstructionists, politics, repressing agendas, unrealistic expectations, and Saba everywhere. People had included me in their own narratives of their successes as it pertained to my album, and if this contradicted my experience, I was considered an enemy." Now, the next year, in 2022, Lauryn Hill also supported the FAIR Act, a California bill that would prevent record labels from suing artists who leave their contracts early. The bill would repeal a 1987 amendment that allows record labels to sue artists for damages if they leave before delivering the required number of albums. And with regards to this, she wrote on Instagram, among many other things, no institution should be allowed the opportunity to control the market by controlling the output of a creative being for some ridiculous indefinite period of time. This is not only unjust, it's dangerous, and at its core, a violation of the principles of free expression. Artists' expressions are their voices and should not be contained, caught up or controlled beyond a reasonable amount of time by an institution with the money and power to obstruct and deny someone's output indefinitely. In addition, she has also discussed numerous times how men and women are treated differently in terms of creative control. She has said that men can often say what they want without being challenged, while women may face so much resistance for speaking about their rights, and she has said that she fights for the freedom to create and live without being threatened, controlled, or manipulated. Lauryn has also spoken about other issues, including sexism and the hypocrisy of the IRS, and all these things reportedly led to her being blackballed in the industry. Basically, just like many other artists who tried to fight for their rights, Lauryn was labeled as being difficult, not showing up, or being very late while still expecting to get respect and that full paycheck. But you know what? This has never stopped Lauryn from speaking her mind, because I think that what I've consciously decided to do is be patient and wait for those instructions again, as opposed to the instructions from the record company. You know, I can't, unfortunately, I can't fulfill their needs. You know, I can't, be, because it's devoid of all feeling. You know what I mean? I have to make sure that what I create, you know, I never want to condescend. There are a lot of people who condescend to the audience. You know, they just think, oh, they like anything. Just throw a beat on it and put your voice on it, but if it doesn't move me, then I don't think it's worthy enough to put out there and move someone else. You know what I mean? Like it has to be something that is personally, you know, is something that I need personally. That's my barometer for whether or not it's good for the people. Not also remember when Lauryn was sentenced to serve 3 months in jail for not paying tax on an estimated $1.8 million in income from 2005 to 2007. It took her a long time to get around to it, taxing the court's patience, but by the time she was sentenced, she had paid $970,000 in federal and state taxes. Apparently the total owed excluded interests in fines. The judge could have sentenced her to 3 years, but her attorney asked for probation and the judge gave her 90 days. Plus another 9 months of supervised release. Apparently she testified in court that she always intended to pay the back taxes but found herself unable to do so when she left the music industry in an effort to protect and care for her 6 children. Allegedly, this also had a lot to do with how much she exposed how the execs were mistreating artists and selling them for money. And shortly after her arrest, she posted a long statement on her Tumblr page in which she said, "I entered into my craft full of optimism, which I still possess, but immediately saw the suppressive force with which the system attempts to maintain its control over a given paradigm. I've seen people promote addiction, use sabotage, blacklisting, and any other coercion technique they could to prevent artists from knowing their true value or exercising their full power. These devices of control, no matter how well-intentioned or not, can have a devastating outcome on the lives of people, especially creative types who must grow and exist within a certain environment and according to a certain pace in order to live and create optimally. You see, the thing is, other high-income tax evaders, even celebrities who could serve as high-profile examples for prosecution, weren't necessarily jailed if the court saw another solution. But reportedly, since Lauryn was fighting the execs, they allegedly pushed for her to be and what she was saying was that the poisonous, dangerous climate of exploitation within the music industry forced her into exile. And once there, she had no way to regain an income sufficient to pay her large back tax bill and support her children. She also said in a statement, "I did whatever needed to be done in order to insulate my family from the climate of hostility, false entitlement, manipulation, racial prejudice, sexism and ageism that I was surrounded by. Unfortunately, she did too much that left her more exposed to the very threats she was hoping to avoid," which she described in her statement as a lifestyle that required distortion and compromise. In addition, Lauryn also answered speculation that her deal with Sony was designed to earn the money to pay off her debt by adding, "This is an old conflict between art and commerce, free minds and minds that are perhaps overly tethered to structure. This is about inequity and the resulting disenfranchisement caused by it. I've been fighting for existential and economic freedom, which means the freedom to create and live without someone threatening, controlling and or manipulating the art and the artist by tying